Okay, I wanted to show you, in case you haven't seen this, something that Wild Ones has been working on for a while. I don't know if you saw the announcements, but we got native garden designs. Anyway.
Hey, Sally.
Yeah.
You're showing the seed catalog PowerPoint, just so you know.
Oh, crap. It's not working. It was a hypertext link. So in other words, none of my hypertext links are not going to work.
Is it on the website?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should pick your browser instead of your PowerPoint.
Okay. Yeah, what was I saying? Hey, are you familiar with how to use Zoom? Okay. Anyway, let me see if I can pull that up now. Well, that's gonna stink. Okay, now I think I can share it. Go to share screen. Come on. So slow. Okay, let's try it now. Okay, now do you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yay!
Yay.
Okay, so if you look, this is a project funded by the Stanley Smith Horticultural Trust called Beautiful Native Gardens. I can't remember the name of the original grant, but it was the idea of providing gardeners with some garden designs using native plants. Here, if you go by region, you'll see, come on, you'll see that we have using the same template. It's like a small suburban or urban yard. It's not huge. It's not acres. Anyway, and then there's a little bit about phasing. And then this is, to me, very cool. You get to see the plants, a little bit of detail on them. So and there's Caleb. We loves us some Caleb. Who, although he's now down in Florida, you might remember him. He was here in the past year or two, but he's working on his PhD. And since we're talking about this topic tonight, one of the features of this website is a listing of nurseries, which I think is really useful. Why?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and the nursery list came from our list, or at least plus Middle Tennessee, and I don't know if Smoky Mountain added any, but anyway, this is a resource that I wanted to have everyone take a look at, which is great, very exciting. Okay, so that's my announcement. This is something I've been working on since about March of last year with our little team.
So this is on the national website?
Yes. Let's see. Now I'm getting confused. Here, do you see the URL? It's nativegardendesigns.wildones.org.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just something a little bit of pretty, and actually the designs are all very different. Like I said, they use the same basic template, and you can see the designers use different design tools, but basically it's the same footprint as far as a house, driveway, the hardscape, and then the designers just went to town. And some went crazy with information, but you'll see it's kind of set up the same way with plant lists, with the actual detail regarding plants. So, and about the designer. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's very cool. So I don't know if we should go right into tonight's special roundtable discussion. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, or I can read your bio that you prepared real quick.
Oh, okay, you could do that.
Do we have any other announcements from anybody at all? Native plant stuff going on around town.
I
Anything
will note,
chapter?
Lynn, we are working on a hike setup for February 27th. The information on that should go out in our member newsletter. So while I don't have a link for you right now, keep your eyes open for that member newsletter that should be coming in the next week or two. If you're interested in going on a hike. Thanks.
Great.
I have a
I think-
question. Was that native design catalog or whatever it is that what we were going to get one of? You mentioned at the last board meeting y'all were going to give them out or something.
Okay.
This is a part of that project. Hold on, I'll grab that if you want.
See, I don't even have a copy. Christina has a copy.
It's a hard copy. Oh wow, look at that.
Yes. So this talks about design plans. I don't know if you guys can all see that. But it is, yes, this is a hard copy. It does not have the designs in it. I think is there a design booklet like this coming, or is the design
No.
all on the, okay.
No,
But
it's a
yeah, so
companion piece to the website.
yes, so this is the companion that talks about how to get started, what to do, how to make your plan and then work your plan. And yes, I have those, and those will be going out to members.
That's fantastic. I feel like so many people trying to get into gardening and native plants, they just want a basic template to start with, and it makes it so much easier to be able to just give them something to get going. And they
Yeah.
can customize it over time. They can find what new things that they love and plug it in, but just a way to get started. That looks really helpful.
Yeah,
Great.
it's really great.
Yeah, it started out as a pamphlet, like a trifold, and they're like, nah, let's just make it a booklet. Let's, really go to town on this. So,
Yeah. Great. Well, I'm going to say real quick that since we have so many participants tonight, I'm just going to go ahead and put the general wild ones, the Tennessee Valley chapter website in the chat. And that is a good place to go if you want to get registered for the symposium or learn about any of the other things we've referenced so far. So our chapter is extremely active. We have an incredible amount of things going on at any given time. The certificate in native plants you can see on our website. More in-depth classes than these free programs that we do. We have the Seeds for Education grants, where we try to incentivize schools to have pollinator gardens. The symposium is our big event that we are so proud of every year. That's all on our website, with a lot of other resources and articles linked, and ways to volunteer. So, and please subscribe to the newsletter. If you have not subscribed to the newsletter, that's the best way to keep in the loop about all of this stuff. Okay, so let's talk about our experts tonight. We're just so lucky. I can't believe it. So both of our presidents are here tonight talking. So we have the biggest chapter, and in my opinion, the best chapter. No, not the biggest, probably still the best. We're the second biggest in the country at this point. But yes, our national president is here, Sally Wenzel, and Christina is our fearless leader in town for our local chapter. I've been volunteering with them for years now, and they're both just so great to work with. So let's talk about Sally. She started out as a master gardener in 2009, and it all went downhill from there. one of the founders of the chapter in 2012. She's volunteering in many programs and projects, serving on the national board since 2014, including service as vice president and now president. Sally's also served on the Chattanooga Tree Commission since 2013, causing as much trouble as possible, always advocating for native plants and the reduction of pesticide use. Christina Schoenefeld began learning about native plants and gardening in general in 2007. She found wild ones during Master Gardener training in 2015, working with many different groups to find new ways of sharing the importance of native plants, including work with Green Spaces, Integrated Community Sustainability Plan, and many other projects. So with that, I'll hand it over to them and just remind everybody again, tonight's kind of discussion based, so keep your questions in the chat or raise your hand and we'll try to get to you. And yeah, take it away, y'all.
Okay, that's me. I'm going to start out and I'm just going to whip through slides because that helps keep me on topic. And maybe, can you see them?
Yeah, we can see your slides. Not anymore. They're gone. Just your native seed.
Okay, that's the first slide. Yay. Okay, and it had a hyperlink, but it's not going to work. So this time of year, you know, when we were talking last fall about programs and we're thinking, you know, winter's such a drag. This is a time of year when you get out your catalogs and you get all inspired about what you're going to do in your yard come spring. So we thought it would be nice to just kind of talk about different types of native plant sources. These are just most of the stuff I just look at online, but these two catalogs I keep because they're pretty. And in particular, the Native American Seed one has really interesting articles in it. They don't have the same information on their website. So seed catalogs are often very instructive. For example, I would love to have Prairie Smoke, which is featured on the Prairie Moon nursery. You can't really grow it here. So you can be inspired by it, but don't get yourself frustrated by wanting to grow a plant that's not from your region. This time of year, it's always nice to look at a pretty field of wildflowers. This is one of my favorite photos. I swiped it from Larry Weiner. This is just a little bit of eye candy for everyone. You look outside and it's kind of dreary. It's like, oh, pretty flowers. This is kind of this shows just a selection of plants that I've grown from seed. This is like my garden in, say, late spring. So yes, growing from seed is very economical. This sometimes you get some interesting stuff happening. That is Cardinal Flower, but I read up and it might actually be a cross between Cardinal Flower and Great Blue Lobelia. But anyway, when you grow from seed, you get more variety. I'm not going to talk about how to propagate, but there are a number of propagation resources that are available to you. I teach, you know, an overview in an hour, and it hardly touches what you need to know. The Certificate in Native Plants class is taught propagation every other year or so. So if you're really interested in learning more about growing from seed, this is a great time, now that we're all holed up, to look online for various different YouTube videos and so forth. But this just shows a starting point. I just used the old Google machine and typed in native wildflower seed online, and a bunch pop up. You know, there are ads at the top, and then you see resources. How do you know what's good and what's not? Well, I can tell you right now, you can probably see that I've clicked on Brownstone Native Seed Company. That's where I've gone. I used to volunteer for Trailhead Nursery. We grew native plants. I use Brownstone Native Seed for some of the to grow out plants for sale to the public. separate from the restoration. I'm going to say real quickly, what are wildflowers? Because as I'm sure Lynn would be anxious to tell you, if you just buy a wildflower seed mix, you will probably not necessarily get native plants in that seed mix. For example, American Meadows, I don't want to bash a company in particular, but if you go to American Meadows, you know, and a seed mix pops up, if anyone's familiar with identifying plants, you know that I don't know that there's a single native wildflower, at least native to the southeast, in that picture. So be very careful when you look up like seed mixes. Seed mixes are a great way to start like a bare patch, you know, where you're just, you know, trying to cut out some yard. You might buy some plugs, and Christine will talk about them, and then you might sow some wildflower seed around them just as filler. So, and then beyond that, if you want to drill down even farther, you should be looking for local eco types. So at least try to get seed from this region. Now, what is native? That's always a good question. I don't want to have a philosophical discussion with Bill, but one way to find out what's native. Has anyone gone to the UT herbarium? I find it fascinating.
The website?
Yeah, I go there all the time. Partly when I'm out just tramping around and I see a plant, it's like, okay, I think it's this. And then I go to the herbarium and then I check to see, and I would have had a link, but obviously the links aren't working. You can look up like vascular plants, and you say, oh, I think it looks like an echinacea. And then you pull up all the echinaceas that are naturally found in Tennessee, and then it will list those species. And then if you click on a species, it'll show a distribution map. So for example, everyone wants Tennessee coneflower, but if you click on the distribution of Tennessee coneflower, it really is only native to the central sands around the Nashville area. You can grow it here, but it's not from here. So the herbarium is a great resource to find out what the botanist who surveyed the state had found occurring here naturally. So I don't have the URL, but just if you look up University of Tennessee herbarium, it'll take you to this site.
I got it.
I actually have a photo in there. I actually have a photo credit. I'm so proud of myself. So that's
In the herbarium?
yeah.
That's
herbarium.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's Arunca's goat's beard. Because there's beautiful cluster of goat's beard that grows around here naturally, and I've collected seed from it, and I've grown my own goat's beard from that seed. So anyway, regarding ecotypes, I just have to say Wild Ones has a statement on it about making sure that you try to grow plants that they're best to go with something that is from here, just in terms of the wildlife associations, as well as adapted to the climate. And speaking of climate, I have collected seed from like Georgia and even Florida with the idea that as the climate warms, we might even need to have plants that are better adapted to hot and dry. But this is just a policy thing, and it's something to consider when you're looking at growing plants, native plants. Ecoregions, that you drill down even further, and this is a very busy map, but you'll see we are in the Ridge and Valley, at least if you're in the Chattanooga area. Here is, I can't remember what, it's the Cumberland Plateau, and this is the Piedmont. So I don't know where everyone is situated from, but the EPA is reloading information on their website. I think it has to do with the change of administration, but you can, this is kind of cool. But I will point out Prairie Moon Nurseries up here. Just saying. Roundstones, not Roundstone. What is that called? North Creek, somewhere around here. So it's just something to remember. You know, if you're going to really want a successful planting, it's good to look at plants that are really meant for the soils and climate in this area. Okay, I said brownstone, one of my favorite. Brownstone is cool because they contract the seed growing, so they do try to get local ecotypes. So if you go to the catalog, and I wonder, now I'm not going to mess around with it, but it's roundstoneseed.com. I think they might be listed on our website, but you're not going to find every plant you want, but you're going to find probably the ones that are the easiest to grow from seed. And you can also order seed mixes, which is nice. So, and we've done that for past symposiums where we have ordered a big bag of one of these a pollinator mix or whatever, and put them in little packets. So that's a great source for getting major amounts of seed. I like Native American seed. They're in Texas, not the same ecotype, but if you have a hell strip and you're looking for hot, dry plants, you might want to look someplace like this, because that's already, you know, along the street that's disturbed. And I'm not so concerned in that case about local ecotypes. You might be able to grow Tennessee coneflower in that sandy, crappy construction soil you might have in your yard. I'll just say that. And it's kind of like around the front of my yard. It's just crap, and it's hot, and it's
sandy.
Yeah, you know, like Phil, like, I don't know. I got a brick house, so they dumped all the mortar, or I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah. We do deal a lot with disturbed soil when we're gardening around our houses.
Are all these, can you buy small quantities of seeds from all
Yes.
these places you're listing?
Yes, they can be as small as like your typical seed packet, or they can be in a big bag. So you can order by packets, ounces, pounds, kilos, I don't know. I know that Brownstone and maybe Native American Seed provide seed for the conservation reserve programs, the pasture land that is converted to native grasses. So you can buy it in large quantities, but you can also purchase it in small quantities. Again, I don't want to bash it, but Prairie Moon's got a great website if you want to research plants. They got a lot of good information about growing conditions for different plants. We do have a lot of the same species as in, you know, north of here, especially wildflowers. Unless there's seed sourcing in the south, they're probably going to be less heat tolerant. But Prairie Moon is a great online source, if nothing more than to look stuff up. Does anyone know what that plant is for the little seedlings? I know.
You can identify cotyledons?
Yeah.
That's really impressive. Somebody, what is it?
I would say it's butterfly milkweed. It's definitely a milkweed, but butterfly milkweed, by the way, is easy to germinate from seed. So it, you know, I think it's a good plant to grow from seed. Good in the wildflower mix.
Bill was just pointing out that Prairie Moon has photos of the seeds, which is extremely helpful. Yeah, a lot of times you really need that to know what you're doing.
What can be even more important if you're growing from seed is a picture of the cotyledons or the seed, the first true leaves. Because, you know, if you scrape something bare and you're throwing seed in, you kind of want to make sure that what you're getting the right plants. I'm going to tell a quick story about how one of the first times a group of volunteers was involved in growing restoration seed. We, mixed up our soil and then we put the seeds in, and my friend was so proud that hers germinated so well. And I just couldn't believe it. So she showed me a photo and was like, that's a cantaloupe. And she had used some compost that
Oh no.
did it. So, like I said, surprises. But yeah, I think Prairie Moon does show a little picture of the first true leaves to help you identify what's coming up. This is not a seed propagation class, but there's a whole lot of keys to success. Something else I'll just point out. This is a great website resource about propagation protocols. You can actually look it up by genus name. If this were a live link, you can just type in here Echinacea. Oh, it's not going to work. Stop. Oh, no, it's not working. Help. Where's my slideshow? You're still seeing the slideshow, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I
But
think.
anyway, it'll show what other universities, especially University of Kentucky and the beans who are famous, as well as some of the restoration work. It'll just show you like stratification, like how to stratify seeds, and how, if you're serious, how to set up your propagation protocols, like soil type, etc. Again, just a little plug about seeds. Very easy to grow from seed, copper iris. Most irises are pretty easy, just keep them very wet. I just think they're cool. And this is just, again, a reminder of why we want to grow wild native plants. I'm seeing a lot of goldfinches right now, but they got their winter drab coloration. So, but I thought this is so funny. I didn't realize what good camouflage showing what is that, coneflower provides for them. And I'm done.
That's great. So are we going to take questions before Christina kind of jumps into her bit? Okay. So we had a couple as you went along. We talked about yeah, all of these will sell in smaller quantities.
Hi, Cassie.
Somebody was asking if Athison was in a different zone. I don't actually know where Athison is, but
Wait,
that map that you showed us.
Apison or Athens? I think they're both Bridge and Valley.
Okay.
That band is pretty wide. It's like on either side of the Tennessee River for, I don't know, up until you get to a ridge.
Mm-hmm.
So, but definitely go to the EPA website.
That was the EPA map you were showing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know that you can blow that map up, and right now the PDFs are not available to download. But
You can zoom in if you have a touch screen, but
okay.
otherwise I don't believe so.
Okay. Yeah, they're saying it's near College Dale. It's about 10 minutes, 10 miles. But we got a question from Donnie. You can just unmute yourself if you'd like, Donnie.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I really don't have a question. I wanted to share what's become a valuable resource for me. I get a lot of native plants from the Monticello store at the Jefferson Center for Plant Science. They do lots and lots of native plants. They're very inexpensive and often shipping is free. You have to catch a deal on that, but I order every season and I'm just delighted at what all I get from there.
Is that affiliated with the University of Virginia?
Not at, maybe somewhat, but the Jefferson Center for Plant Science is located on Monticello's estate, and they employ several plant specialists, and native plants is one of their areas. But they also have, of course, the garden plants and perennials from all over the world, because Jefferson was a collector of plants. But I love their native species. I've gotten some really good starts from there.
That's great. We had a question a little while back about when to plant. And again, we probably can't get into too much detail about all that tonight, but if you've got general advice about when to plant, and then another person asked an easy species to just scatter on the ground in the garden.
Oh, okay. I can talk about easy species. The coneflowers, purple coneflower germinates really well. Rudbeckia, the fulgida that I showed, that germinates well. Okay, I'm blanking. I had a list. It might still be somewhere in the Tennessee Valley website.
Your native annuals list?
Yeah, annuals.
That's a great article. I actually was
Yeah.
just looking at it. I could find that in a second and I'll post it.
Yeah, that's particularly good. If anyone ever read Thomas Rainier and Claudia West's book, or took the class, they recommend using that kind of filler, annuals, native annuals as filler for when you've got, like Christine is going to talk about, you've got your bare roots and your plugs and you just want to do a little weed suppression. There are definitely some native annuals that germinate pretty well and help to fill the gaps.
Awesome. Someone is asking where to find information on your propagation class. So they may be thinking about the Certificate in Native Plants class that you mentioned, but I
Right.
think you probably should teach a propagation class sometime, Sally.
Maybe when I'm done with national.
Okay.
No, and I think that in Charlotte's actually one of the co-chairs of the CNP. I think this is not the year, but probably next year. It's like a whole day, the first session in the morning, and it's about seeds. And the second session's about woody and clonal propagation, which is a great way to get more bang for your buck.
Yeah, those are really excellent classes. Do
Yeah.
we have any info about those at this time, Charlotte or anybody? Probably not. Yeah, we'll get those lined up.
Well, part of it's too COVID, and that has to be
Yeah.
in person, and so we had to really aim for virtual. But if you look on YouTube and you look specifically for wild, native plants, I think there are some videos out there that go into things like stratification to greater detail. I can't remember her name, but she's like the Wildflower Farm or something, and she's got some video just on some quick stratification methods and stuff. But everyone's got their own technique. So when it comes to actually setting out your seed starts and stuff, but the easiest obviously is just right now, if you had seed, just throw it out in your garden, because they'll get a little bit of that cold, wet stratification. And then when the soil warms up, it'll be nice and primed to germinate.
Absolutely. So yeah, folks were asking about when, and the answer right now. native seeds, it's good to let them go through the winter. So I'm gonna move on, even though we got a few more questions. Let's hear from Christina.
All right. Donnie, you still have your hand raised. Do you still have a question for us before we move on to other plants?
I do not, sorry.
No problem. You just popped up, so I wanted to make sure. So Sally talked a lot about seeds and where to find seeds, and some of our sources for plugs and bare root plants are the same. Now, I want to start off by saying there are, number one, a ton of native nurseries where we can go get plants or order plants. And a lot of those places are semi-local, say within a 2 to 3 hour drive. And so when we started looking at putting this together, we discussed, you know, the catalog idea of plants that we can't necessarily, we may not be able to go to the nursery. We may need other quantities. It may be difficult to drive 2 hours and not have the list of plants that we want. So we do have really great nurseries available to us.
That's not your food.
And I want to
You go outside. Okay.
I'm going to mute that. And so we do have a lot of really great nurseries that are available to us, and we are certainly not advocating for those nurseries today. You can see all of those on our website. We have a good portion of them listed. The ones that we list on our website, we have discussed their pesticide practices with them and their availability of native plants, what they use, with all of that kind of stuff. So those are our nurseries that we're comfortable with. When we're talking about today, I've got a few things to show. Somebody.
Good girl.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to look at some websites here. Now, like I said, this is definitely not all of them. There are plenty of other places to source plants from. These are some of the places that we trust and we know we can get good products. Sally was talking about seed catalogs. I am with her. I don't get a lot of catalogs because I'm not huge on getting paper catalogs. Prairie Moon is one that I get regularly. And I'll tell you, it's not even because of their plant catalog, it's because of this companion that they send. And this companion has not only the plants, but it gives tons of extra information on how to stratify your seeds, when to do it. All of that kind of information is there. And I will leave that to you all to look at.
Hey, are you
yeah.
showing something right now, or are we just looking at the Wild Ones homepage?
Yeah, I'm just showing the wild ones, right? That's
Okay,
just kind of where I start. Yeah. So I'm going to move over here to look at Prairie Moon. And with them, you can not only order seeds, but you can also order plugs, which is a great way if you're trying to fill a large space for less money than bigger plants. It's a great way to start. Bare root plants are very easy to do. Of course, plugs are very easy to do, and they have options for both of those. I'm going to show you, this is some of the information that, like Bill was saying, with seeds from Prairie Moon, they not only show you what the seed looks like, they give you kind of a measuring guide so you can see how big or small they are. They also do that with bare root plants. So if you're looking for bare root plants, and these are really easy to plant in the spring or the fall. Even with perennials, I've had good luck with bare root in the fall. I mean, yeah, in the fall. And they give you that soil level where you should plant it. And this is actually printed on the containers that your plants come in. So you'll get a stick. Now, with bare roots, it's not the most fun way of planting initially because you're looking at bare sticks and roots. You're not getting a leafy green plant. You're not getting a seed that you get to watch germinate and grow. But you can fill a lot of space quickly with bare root plants. Prairie Moon and Prairie Nursery also have customizable kits, which is great if you don't need a lot of plants, if you're working in a smaller space, but you want to keep your costs down and you're using plug size. I'm moving over to Prairie Nursery from Prairie Moon, and they could get really confusing because they both have very similar products. Although I find that if I can't find an item at one, I can usually find it at the other. And so they also have, with their plants, they have a lot of very good information that goes along with it. And are you guys seeing my screen change as I
Yep,
rotate through? Okay.
we're seeing black cohosh now.
Great. Okay. So this one, again, when you go in, and this is a good way to learn a lot about the plants. If you're new to native plant gardening, if you don't know a lot of these plants on their own, some of these nurseries are great places to go and look. I'm using Prairie Moon and Prairie as a guide because they have really invested a lot of time and energy in telling us about these plants, where they're located, when they bloom, what they look like, all those details. And then the next one I want to talk about is probably one of my favorite nurseries when I'm working on big projects. And this is, again,
One that says they
not
buy other nurseries. So you type in your zip code to find out what your shipping cost is. So Tennessee Naturescapes was one of them. What happened to them?
what's that? Can you repeat that?
I think she may not have actually meant to say that out loud.
Maybe not. Okay. So yes, Isle Native Plants is a newer nursery of sorts. They're sort of a middleman between people who grow plugs and their availability, because a lot of plugs are available through places like Prairie Moon and Prairie, but plugs are not usually available through most regular nurseries that we would go to. Usually 4-inch pots is the smallest you can get. So what Isle does is it works with nurseries from all over to create availability of plugs. So for example, North Creek Nurseries is a wholesale nursery. And Tennessee Naturescapes also does wholesale plug growing, but that's not necessarily something that I, as an individual, can go buy from North Creek. You have to be a landscaper and you have to set up accounts and all that good stuff. So, so by using Isle, I can go into their website and then see what nurseries have these things available. That means I can go through and pick the nursery that's closest to me. And they also do some seed packets.
Such a time saver.
Yeah, for sure. So let's look at Isle also is very well laid out so that you can pick things that are native to your state. You can get stray species. You can look specifically, or rather not look specifically at cultivars. And there's just, they have pretty much all these options available. Let's see if we can. So you can see one of the things it doesn't have is, I mean, they have some description, but they're probably not quite as detailed, but still give you a very good overview of everything that kind of the bones about each plant. It shows you also where they can be found and gives you this USDA map that will tell you if it is native to your area. And then again, where you can find them. Now, this does a lot of times limit ecotypes, but when you're looking at doing something large scale, or for example, if you are looking for a lot of them, but maybe know somebody else who wants to share plants with you, this is a great option. This one's a particularly expensive plant. And some of them that are hard to propagate, that are rare, they will be more expensive overall. But when you're looking at a flat of 50 or 32 or 72, then it's, it becomes more reasonable. They do also note cultivars. If you'll see on the screen here, they will mark it. They say it's a cultivar, which I appreciate because some of them, so one of the discussions about cultivars is everything that has a name in that's highlighted is a cultivar. That's not particularly true because they also name clones that way. So while it may be a native species and it may be straight species, it may be cloned or propagated for a specific trait, whatever that may be. So that gets even farther down the rabbit hole of discussion about cultivars versus straight species. So makes it easier. Yeah, it's a lot more confusing. But see, you can see here that if you're going through and you have a large space to fill, you can order 32 plug counts, or you can get 72s. And like if you order 5 or more from them, you get 10% off. And that does not mean 5 or more flats of this one plant. So if it's coming out of that nursery, then you get discounts the more flats you order. So that can be really helpful if you're working on a church project or a community project or a park or anywhere that you might share plants with. This is a really great resource for that. And
I'm surprised you have nothing in your basket.
I know that's because I've already ordered. We did a huge order for church just last week. So also, while we're talking about that, one of the hardest things that I know when I was first starting to get into native plant gardening was, how do I know whether it's a native plant or not? And basically I just had to come up with ways to find that. Just, the plant that I like the look of, I'm going to go see, is that a native plant or is that not a native plant? And this is a great place to do that. Bonap is one of the most comprehensive, I think, places to look. And we'll look, for example, I'll pick one that's actually native. And it doesn't just cover our North American natives. It also covers most other plants too. There we go. Look at this one. So for example, in the family Amorpha, we have here one that is native that is Amorpha fruticosa, and it's called false indigo bush. It's a really nice shrub that you can actually see in the wild down along the Tennessee River. I've seen it over on the water behind Tennessee and in that area. I know they added some, but there was also some there. So for example, if I look up Amorpha fruticosa, I can see here where it's actually found. So that's a great resource for me. There's also, part of Zoom is covering up my browser, so take me a second. Another one that I wanted to show you all is the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. They also have a really great database that talks about native plants. You can look it up here by native plant, or you can use scientific name. You can also choose the common name, and it will pull up all of the information about that plant. For example, here it shows us it's a perennial, the forb. This is passion flower vine, where its native range is. And it will even show you like this. I like this one because it will show you all of the states around where you are. So if you're in Tennessee and you see that Kentucky and Georgia and Alabama all have it, then it's possible that it's in Tennessee somewhere. They just have not noted it in the wild. And then it gives you all the classifications and legal status. This will talk about really kind of how they classify it. this one, for example, they can say it can be weedy or it will tell you, but then if you're looking at plants that aren't from here, for example, if you put in kudzu, it's going to tell you that that's a listed invasive, things like that. So they have a lot of really good information there.
Yeah, so great when you're getting started with natives. It took me a long time to there's so many plants that I had gardened with that weren't native, but it takes
Yeah.
a long time to figure out, and you gotta just look stuff up.
Right. And there's a lot of, you know, like I said, the cultivar thing has become pretty important this year. I've seen a whole lot of posting, whereas it's been, you know, talked about in the past, but not as heavily as it is currently, about using straight species versus cultivars. And Mount Cuba's doing a lot of research on that. I think they've really kind of increased their research on, they were doing some, and they've really increased that now that there's been more advocacy for straight species, and to see what the differences are in some of these cultivars. It would be nice if we could get nurseries to actually share all the information about the cultivar, what it was bred for, or what traits they were looking for. As we know, things like double blooms are not beneficial to our pollinators. And so, yeah, that kind of information would certainly be more helpful.
Well, just as a point,
So,
all
mhm,
cultivars are clones, but not all cultivars are bred. I mean, that's, if you
right,
breed and get a special thing that's a double flower, you then have to make clones of it exclusively. So
right,
the biggest issue with the clones is they're all the same thing, so that
right.
if you have a bad day, you have a bad day. But here again, for Amsonia, if you have 7 or 8 different named cultivars, then you have 7 or 8 different
Right.
functionalities. So it's, you know,
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking specifically there is a verbena that was actually found in the wild in Georgia, and it has a name, but it is a
Homestead
native plant. Yeah, I think that's it. Homestead
glandularis.
purple. Yeah.
but that's what they
Um,
all are. I mean, except for the strange bread things, all cultivars are something that somebody found in the wild, or some oddball thing you found in a garden that you were growing, and now you're propagating it by clonal means.
that's not completely accurate. They're not all found in the wild. Many of our new cultivars are bred specifically for traits,
Oh,
which is
yeah,
different.
but
Yeah,
I'm
that's
saying that,
different.
but that's a different kind. But a lot of the cultivars are things that naturally occur because they're being hybridized all the time. I mean, the Wild Winds Center up there in Wisconsin got all upset because some of their varieties were crossbreeding. And it's like, that's what they do.
Yes, that's not, yeah, that's nature, and that's part of the reason that people are advocating for straight species, because when we add in these plants that have already been manipulated, then we're increasing the chance of those straight species being farther manipulated. So, but that's a whole different discussion from sourcing plants. So, yeah, if anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer or let someone else answer too.
Yeah, any questions for Christina? We're having a good time, so it's 7 o'clock. I say we keep going. I think Sally's got a bit more for us. But if anybody's, oh no, maybe not.
Yeah, Sally, the other resources like eBay and
Oh,
things like
right.
that. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I guess I have gotten a while here in me where it's like, I gotta have this plant. I just got it. And you saw that, you know, Brownstone and American Native Seed and some of these other, even Prairie Moon might not have it. Because, for example, I had a hardest time finding rose verbena. I wanted to grow it from seed. And you just can't find rose verbena seed. I don't know why. I don't know if they propagate it by cuttings or root. I'm not sure, but so I've been known to go to eBay. I've been known to go to Etsy. I've been known to just do a basic internet search and look around for any old seller. When you start getting into that territory, you got to be careful because you might not be getting what you think you're getting. But when you're trying to source things like shrubs, unless you're going bare root, it gets harder because we all know you start adding in the shipping fees. So my most proud moment is I got a wild hair. I wanted Viburnum obovatum. If you go down to the new memorial well, you can't go there now, at the Fry Center, the memorial around the reserve where Chattanooga Strong and all that. What am I trying to say? It was a new installation. It's a memorial, and there's a nice little shrub planted all around. And I gave the landscape designer some heat. I'm like, why would you put? I think I thought it was boxwood. I said, why would you plant boxwood around that? And he said, that's not boxwood. That is Viburnum obovatum. I'm like, really? And so, of course, I looked it up, and it's nice and compact. It's semi-evergreen. It's got nice white flowers. It stays small. And so I got this. I wanted it. I'm sorry. I'm confessing. I'm a plantaholic. So I searched around. I couldn't find it anywhere except I did find it on Etsy, believe it or not. And I looked at it. It was like $25, but it was like $20 to ship it. I'm like, oh, that is too much. That is just a bridge too far for me. I'm not going to spend that. So for some reason, I was just again on the Google machine, and I found that Tractor Supply Company had it listed as something that they sold. And so I looked at it, I said, that's the same exact picture as that nursery that I found on Etsy. It turned out it was the same nursery, but I could order it through Tractor Supply for a little bit less and no shipping charge.
Wow.
So sometimes, you can be, sometimes you can be creative. Of course, I had to wait a week or two. Oh my God, not instant gratification. But I saved a ton of money that way. Got basically the same plant, and it is a cool little shrub. It's really not exactly native, but it is native south of here. So, and I keep thinking insurance, especially when you have heat zones around your house. Again, this is kind of a place for, it's a hot, dry, little compact shrub. So,
And what was the name of that viburnum that you were talking about?
obovatum.
Obovatum.
Yeah. And it's got a nice, neat little habit. Like I said, I thought it was boxwood.
Interesting.
So it is possible. And I have actually on eBay, I found woodland plants. And they're just little hole in the wall places in Tennessee. I mean, you can say I'm searching within 150 miles. And I've been able to find a number of woodland plants that way, and ferns through eBay. Of course, one time I got the ferns, and I'm not a fern expert, but I said, that's not the fern you said it was, but it happened to be like a Florida fern. So I take it in. I just keep it in a pot and I take it in the winter. But there are other places where you can find plants. But like I said, these buyer beware. You may not be getting what you think you're getting. So
That would be a good place to look back at somewhere like Prairie Moon. If they have that plant listed, you can look and see what their seeds look like. And if it's not that seed, you
Yeah.
don't know what you've got.
Yeah, I mean, I want to make sure that I'm pretty darn close to what I think I'm getting. But I even had a bad experience with Brownstone because again, they rely on contractors. I thought I ordered Silene regia, royal catchfly. It turned out to be after it growing the seed and it bloomed and the bloom wasn't right. It was the non-native catch fly. So that was, and I let him know.
What
And
seed? Where did you get that seed?
Brownstone.
Oh,
And they're very apologetic. I sent them a photo. I said, this is not the plant
yeah.
the seed I ordered. And so they contract out some of their growing. So it is
Interesting.
possible to not get what you want, but usually, I mean, they were professional about
Mhm.
it and sent me the right seed, but it was, I don't know.
That's tough. I mean, it takes a long time to,
Right.
accumulate those experiences and figure out what might have gone wrong because, to anybody else, they might not have noticed that it was the wrong species.
Yeah. And that's
Um,
why seed swaps, among people are probably the safest, but we're kind of not there right now.
mhm.
But of course, my refrigerator's full of seed,
Yeah,
waiting for a good home. So,
nice. Well, yeah, we had some miscanthus pop up in one of our plantings, and we had to question where did this come from? Did it blow in on the wind? Because we are in Chattanooga and there's miscanthus out there running wild. But Hoffman Nursery does grow miscanthus, so it could have been contaminated nursery stock that we bought from them. We had also put down Roundstone Seed, so it could have been contaminated seed from them. So it's they don't grow miscanthus, they don't
right.
sell miscanthus seed, but again, if they're contracting things out or just harvesting seed out in the world, miscanthus can get in there. So it's hard to know.
Or could have been a guerrilla action of the Miscanthus Society. They, threw seed in there because, anyway, I'm kidding.
Well, we got any more questions tonight? Someone a long time back asked about Monticello native seeds and where to is there a website for that? So I think that was a question for the gentleman we had talking earlier. I don't know much about Monticello's stuff personally.
I don't either. I didn't know they did any native plants, so that's good to know. Does anyone else know of a place where you can actually get visuals of the seeds and the seedlings?
It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
What I usually do is a Google search, and I'm very precise in saying seedling. In the search terms, but you have to go through a lot of crap. But once you grow plants, well, I guess anyway, it's like when you're a vegetable gardener, you know what a tomato seedling looks like. You just kind of
Mm-hmm.
you kind of learn what to expect, and
Okay.
like the little baby. Well, the characteristics of the my babies,
Babies.
no, of like the Tennessee coneflower, you get kind of accustomed to the hairy leaves, so you can kind of see some of the characteristics coming out. It's not just the flower. You have to spend a little time looking at the other plant structures to know what you're looking at.
Yeah. It's like learning how to identify plants in the winter when all you've got is a dried up seed head.
Yeah.
A lot of fun ways to identify a plant. Yeah, cotyledons, the seeds, the dead leftover material. I just posted one website that I found a long time ago. So that castle.eu
Mhm.
prairie index, that has pictures of cotyledons, but I
Oh, cool.
don't know how good it is. And Charlotte found a website, the Monticello website there is also in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make note too that for all of you using your computer for this Zoom, you can actually save the chat that has all of those resources. There's, if you see the 3 dots on the side of the chat box, you have the option to save your chats, and you can, that way you have all those resources saved into a document.
That is so incredibly clever. I've never noticed that. That's really great.
Yeah, we learn new stuff all the time. And this, you know, barring our watch back and it's not horrible, we'll post it to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, I think this would be a pretty handy one for the YouTube channel. If anybody hasn't seen the channel, we've got almost all the presentations from this year of social distancing. So
Yeah, we've I'm not sure that we've gotten to January's yet because it's been a little hectic with symposium work.
I can save the chat, but I can't find out where the computer puts it.
Your download default file, like download.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it should have a bar that comes up once you hit save that says show in folder. And when you do that, it should show you where it saved it.
Oh, mine says show in Finder. Okay.
Oh, she's got Mac.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I see it now.
Any other questions? You can unmute
yeah,
yourself.
Yeah.
anything at all at this point. We're
Yeah.
well over time.
It's a
We're just
free
hanging
for all.
out. Just hanging out now.
Or other sources.
Yeah, or other information.
Or we could try to stay on topic. Yeah, if we must.
I guess no one has any comments. Oh, make sure you sign up for the symposium.
Oh, yes.
Please.
I'm very excited about that. What's really nice, we don't have to worry about not having enough seats or there being enough lunches. So
Good point. Sold out last year, huh?
Very
Year
liberating.
before.
Yes.
I was going to say Ladybird Johnson is another great website for figuring out if things are native.
Yeah.
But just general advice. My coworkers and I were talking today. We're planning our spring purchases for our green infrastructure sites for the city. And we were talking about how much time we put into learning new species. And, you know, you mentioned reading all the descriptions and how each nursery includes different information.
Mhm.
So really you end up cross-referencing a lot of time, at least like 3 different sources to learn about that plant. If it's a plant you've truly never used before and you've never seen in the landscape,
Mhm.
being able to read all those different nursery descriptions, and then something like Ladybird Johnson or Missouri Botanical Garden or Mount Cuba. It's really nice to have so many. I feel like when I was new to this, I thought, wow, this is crazy. Why are there so many resources describing the same stuff?
Well, let's add the caveat to that. You can look up the same under Morton, Ladybird Johnson in Missouri, and you can find on one of them it likes sun, and one of them it likes part shade, and the other it likes shade. So I really recommend that you look at more than one if you really care.
Absolutely.
Because,
Yeah.
and the truth of the matter is, most plants aren't that fussy. I once made the statement that plants can't read, and it turns out that many people have made that observation before me. So it wasn't terribly original, but you know, each one of those has in mind where they were growing it, whether they're in the north side of the hill or the south side. So you really got to kind of look at several to get a consensus if you think it's a fussy plant.
Yeah. And I will say that's always where I come back to books a lot for stuff like that. Yeah, there's just, especially if they're more commonly used plants in the landscape. I look at my books all the time. So, because, you know, like Larry Weiner, he's very good at talking about the descriptions of how these plants move. Larry Mellichamp, on the other hand, he's, you know, very conscious of how these plants not only move, but where they find their best habitat. His new book is really great.
Ooh, what's that called?
It is the Southeast Native Plant Primer. And I will tell you, this is a primer. So for anybody who's just getting started with native plants, it's really good for that, I think. I would have liked to have had this one before I had his big, huge book, which I immediately got engrossed in.
Interesting.
But yeah, and that's a really good one. It's a newer one. So, but yeah, so I go back to books a lot for plant descriptions and where they're happiest as well.
Christina, I'm putting a list, a thing on the chat for this catalog that was an early propagation class that we had, this Jan Midgley.
Oh, yes.
Jan Midgley is great.
Yeah, I'll put her name and see what I can find. Let's see in there.
I think Bill, I think you introduced me to Jan Midgley at Colowee one year.
A lot of good things in it.
Yeah, she's from Alabama. Well, I was over at the Alabama conference, and this lady was beside me, and I asked her why she hadn't bought anything, and she looked at me and said, "I start my own plants." That's when I met Jan Midgley.
And she has a set of, I think it's a couple of booklets that are really intensive. They went way past, yeah, I'm like going back and reading them now and understanding some of what it meant. When I first read it, I was like, I don't get any of this. So now it's a good resource, but yeah, initially it was scary.
You can get that from the Birmingham Botanical Garden ladies. She's actually moved out to Colorado or something, but she lets them sell copies of it. It's now in the 4th edition, but there's not much difference between the 4th and the 3rd. Yeah. And it also is a book that she wrote.
Patty, jump in there if you got a question for us. You can unmute anytime.
Thanks. And I kind of have a lag. Our internet is bad, so I didn't want to jump on top of someone. Do you mind if I ask a quick question? Since you guys are in Chattanooga, I'm in Nashville. But when I looked at that garden design for Chattanooga when I got the email last week, which I thought was really gorgeous. And I'm curious if any of you all have had time to look at it. Sally, I in particular was wondering, like, now I'm trying to get back to it on my computer. Sorry. Like, it has Yupon holly on there and it just has the straight species. Mm-hmm. But I'm really curious, like, I don't think there's enough room to have all those Yupon hollies. Like,
yeah. And that was actually because I was going to say thought police, but I won't. I guess I just did. Originally, Caleb spec'd out Yupon holly Nana, and that being a nativar that got yanked. And he said, well, instead, I guess you could put in purple love grass or something else. And so that went through a filtering process. So yeah, it might be too much for a front view. He also said that in some areas in Chattanooga, I guess like I think about Signal Mountain and one particular place where there is a screen along the road there. It was intentional. So I guess that these are not like templates where you have to use everything, but rather to be inspired. I mean, you could swap out a smaller plant there. The other thing you can do is if you liked a more relaxed style, you could look at some of the other designers' projects and just think about, well, instead of prairie smoke, what would be a good substitute since that really wouldn't do well here? Well, maybe instead I'll use showy goldenrod or, you know, something else instead of that plant. So I think the designs are there to inspire. It was funny because some of the feedback we got was like one chapter wanted us to have pricing information on there. It's like, no. You
Yeah.
can imagine if you went to a typical specialty nursery, you could spend $10,000. If you got liners like Christina was showing for the dogwood or plugs, you could do it for considerably less. So it's really hard to cost out those projects, but you can be inspired by the plant palettes, and you can substitute out. Like you're in the Nashville area, I'd use Tennessee coneflower like crazy. You know, it's a great plant. Or some of the other prairie plants. You might actually find that some of the more Midwestern plantings have more similar selections because it's more alkaline soil. Here it's more acidic, so we're going to have different plant selection criteria. So there's going to be more designs, and let me tell you, one chapter wanted to take a design from one area and then come up with their own plant selection list that was really geared toward their area. So it's really, I think it's inspirational. I think it's a jumping off point for a lot of people who want beautiful native gardens. So mine's not looking beautiful right now, but I can definitely be inspired. Actually, it's full of birds. The robins have come in and they're picking away all over the place. I love it. Oh, and there was something in the description about how to make sure that they're pesticide free. You have to ask. I think most native seed sources don't treat their seeds. They just don't. And I think if they do, I think Prairie Moon will, or somewhere will tell you what the treatment is. It might be a fungicide or something like that.
Yeah, they actually stamp on their website that they are pesticide free. And others do as well. And that's one of the reasons that even though they might not necessarily be in our ecoregion, they are definitely paying attention to the other important factors. I'll note, another example of that is North Creek, who you can order from them through Izell. They just put out a statement about a plant that they have quit propagating and selling because they found it to have invasive tendencies, and so they completely removed it and then posted all about it and said, hey, we're doing this because this is bad and we don't want to do bad things. So I think that the relationship and that that kind of transparency with the nurseries that you're doing business with is kind of utmost importance, especially if you're doing it online. With our local nurseries and stuff, it's much easier to have that conversation and to be aware of what their practices are and to promote them, and so we're happy to do that always as well. Does anybody else have questions?
Lynn's making me hungry eating her food, so
Sorry,
we're casual.
sorry. I got tableside service here.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm gonna sign off.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both. Thank you both so much. This has been a lot of fun and really informative.
Yeah.
I
And
definitely picked up some new websites tonight.
don't
This is
forget,
great.
March 27th,
Yeah.
if you're in the area, bring your
And
mask.
thank you all for joining us. Yeah.